Imagine renting a vehicle where you can download the app, select your car, then walk up to it, tap, and then drive away. The electric vehicle network makes it as simple as that. This multi brand electric car dealer in Canada, with locations in Toronto, is where you can rent or buy lightly used EVs. Join me in welcoming Johnny Beckett, who talks about the electric vehicle network's revolutionary way of renting or buying an electric vehicle. Hi, Johnny. Welcome to Reimagined Energy.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It's great to speak with you today and learn a little bit about your background. What led you to where you are now?
It's definitely been a long and winding road for sure. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Halifax, right here in HRM. And I spent the first 10 years of my career in consulting engineering as a electrical designer and technologist, doing lots of electrical infrastructure projects all around the Atlantic region. And and it's funny. So I do have a technical background, but I was working at a firm, CBCL, a great local firm at the time. This is way back, mind you, in 2011, and
Way back,
yeah,
2011. Can't believe
exactly.
it.
And they had a program at the time called Share Ready. This coincided with, of course, the market introduction here in North America of the first Nissan Leaf. And so this Share Ready program had a number of these Leafs that were ready to share at different points, like at Nova Scotia Power, at CBCL, for example, in downtown Halifax. And it gave, technical-minded professionals an opportunity to drive electric. And because I was already obsessed with renewable energy and already in this sector and doing energy audits and clean infrastructure and that kind of thing, it was really a happy transition. I had a very good first experience in that Nissan Leaf. And actually at the time I was living about 45 minutes away from downtown Halifax. So they really wanted me to use it, especially to see, does it meet your lifestyle? Does it meet your needs? You live 45 minutes away from downtown Halifax, and this is a very new thing. And it actually ended up with charging at work, with a charger installed at work. It actually worked out very well. And I recall all these years later, sitting in a gym parking lot before I went in for my workout, thinking about all the technical steps and pieces that would have to come together and innovations for this electric future that we now refer to really take off. Again, in context, it was 2011, so
Right. Well,
that's
it's been
really
a
sort of
bump.
full circle how I got
Well,
to.
yeah, definitely. And there's been a lot of changes in the industry since then. There's been
Absolutely.
pun intended, but, a bumpy ride a little bit and a couple of potholes thrown in there. So, which all comes from rapid growth in the industry, right?
That's
But
right.
where would you say, the industry is right now for EVs, like on the consumer side, but also the commercial side?
It's definitely growing. It hasn't really stopped growing, which is a great thing. So it's been growing more and more and more intensely. Even pre-COVID, it really coalesced with the introduction of the Model 3, and that really was the first mass market car that the mass market consumer could see themselves driving. So that was definitely an inflection point in the industry, and that's continued on through all the unfortunate events of COVID over the past few years, and it's kept growing steadily, but it hasn't been without its fair share of bumps and potholes, like you said, especially as Nova Scotians. We're used to a bit of a bumpy ride here domestically on our roads, but it has been a topsy turvy few years in the vehicle industry generally, but compoundedly so with respect to electric vehicles. Again, everything from supply numbers to price drops in the market from Tesla and how that affects and snowballs through the rest of the industry. there's those things that are happening, as well as a massive build out in charging infrastructure, more makes and models on the road than ever before, and more variety for the consumer than ever before. So it's sort of like this yin and yang of real concrete challenges on the road to mass adoption, and all of this suite of innovation that has happened, even to bring us to bear to this point. Um, has been it's been quite a ride for sure, but it's been a lot of fun, and I see a little bit of risk in the future, but definitely much more opportunity.
That's really good because, there's not really good that there's risk, but, and I guess, can you elaborate a little bit on the risk side of things?
Well, just in a most recent sense, there's been sort of a little bit of a backlash, I think, in the general North American automotive market. I'm sure you've seen it too, and there's a lot of sort of quasi misinformation or malintent behind some of these media pieces, and there has been some concrete backlash with respect to the consumer. And even just yesterday, Hertz in the States announcing that they were going to dump a bunch of Model 3s back into the pre-owned market. It sort of gives people a sense of, hey, are people really biting, the EV bait? Or is the mass market really ready for this? If there is a backlash, is real. What's the extent of it? How can we respond as an industry and make that more streamlined for the consumer? And so that's really where I've been concentrating my efforts these past few years.
Definitely, because the consumer attitudes or the behaviors towards EVs, it came from a point, and we were both early adopters with EVs, where it came from curiosity. It's like, oh wow, that's so cool.
Yeah,
To now, it's shifting towards, it's kind of a must-have. It's money saving. It's a little costly up front, but the savings over time, it pays off. Would you say
absolutely. Yeah.
it's along that line?
Yeah, absolutely. The economics are undeniable, and I'm sure that just to recite the example of Hertz, I'm sure that's why Hertz ordered so many direct from Tesla, a year and a half ago, and of course the amount that are being sold now back into the market is substantially less than they bought. So are people taking the bait? Well, yes, I think so. It's not a complete, rosy picture. There's up and down. It's like a stock ticker. It's a noisy function, but it is trending in the right direction, undeniably.
You mentioned Hertz just a minute ago. So let's talk about EVN, the electric vehicle network,
Yes, yeah.
which you have, and the concept behind it, and also, the cool features about your mobile app. You're changing the way people rent cars now.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. Thank you for that. It's definitely been an entrepreneurial journey and a half for sure. So EVN, short for Electric Vehicle Network, I co-founded this company back in 2019 with my partner Daryl Croft, who was the chairman of OK Tire, Coast to Coast. So he came at it from a perspective of electric vehicles are really easy to maintain. Is there really a future in big box dealerships when most of their revenue comes from the service side of the business, and that how easily that could be duplicated in the aftermarket space, which is, he owns that space. And of course I came in as the EV technical engineering guy and sales entrepreneur. So I came into it on that side. So really the the crux of the business model of Electric Vehicle Network is to be a full suite dealer services operation that also does rentals. If you can imagine back in 2019, when it was much newer in the industry and EVs were still very much an early adopter thing, right on that precipice, with the release of the Model 3, Daryl and I sat down and we said, how can we build a business where we're protected financially and that we can still play in all these exciting new avenues in the e-mobility space? So we basically came up with the idea of renting pre-owned electric vehicles, which gives us as a business a continuous revenue stream and leveraging the experience of those rentals as a conduit of education towards the sales process, and then growing our sales and our EV inventory. So that's really sort of what we've been concentrating on. And you brought up our app Rent Electric, available in the App Store and an Android store as well. Is an app where you can experience an EV fully contactless 24/7. You can basically get into it, pick your car, put in your license and your insurance information, and the majority of these things are happen automatically in the back end. And then when you walk up to the EV's location, you can essentially access the car, from the app itself, and get in and experience the electric vehicle and see if it's the right model for you, and if EVs even make sense. Of course, we're headquartered in Toronto, so it's a very dense but also a very broad area, the GTA, as we all know. So certain makes and models work really well in that environment, and other models not so much. Like my lovely first generation Nissan Leaf, it doesn't work the best in the GTA, but something like a standard range plus has become a standard bearer of vehicles that you see on the road in big cities everywhere.
The idea of walking up to you don't have to walk up to a counter, and
Mm-hmm.
talk to a person, wait in
Mm-hmm.
the long lines, for your car to be ready. Oh, it's not ready yet, or we don't have this car. Or you want to, all the hassles, if you can
Yeah.
imagine at a car rental agency, this totally turns it on its head.
Yeah, and especially because, of course, car rentals are much more general speaking. It's a much more general classic business, and of course, they're not they're not from the EV space. They're from a general automotive, general rental business space. So being able to automate that experience upfront allows us to have the human capacity to interact and again use that rental experience as a conduit to education. So it doesn't make sense as a business to pay somebody to stand there and enroll people into rental sessions. It makes much more sense to pay those people to have their back with respect to an uncertain charging infrastructure, or be able to communicate them in real time in the vehicle, let them know, ease their anxiety of where charging stations are located. And of course, there's so many fun things that you can do from a marketing perspective, like gamification and that kind of thing that we're just experimenting with now. That I think is going to lend itself to growing this part of our business.
Interesting. What would you say is the future of car dealerships? Does this change the way they need to be, or would become with EVs?
I think so. I think there's a few changes that are happening generally in the automotive industry that are taking advantage of the simplicity in design of electric vehicles and what they bring to bear. Most notably the lack of maintenance and the lack of that service revenue stream as a big box dealership. These are legacy businesses that run on the equity that's stored in the building on a parking lot. All that is subject to change here in the future. You've got New World EV manufacturers. Obviously, Tesla's in and will remain in the pole position in that with their direct to consumer model. But you see one of the biggest automotive companies, in history, Ford, with their CEO very much wanting to duplicate that, but of course being held back by their own dealer lobby, of course. But they do want to make that change into much, the dealership will change from a big box revenue generation facility to a consumer centric, delivery point and service and education consumer touch point. And but of course, that comes at the expense of all that equity stored in land that will not be functionally usable in that future. So it really raises a big question and a big risk, for large dealer groups. Of course, they'll be able to absorb this risk over time, but there's going to be a point on the graph when that kind of business model just doesn't make sense with this sort of hyper electrified, hyper connected industry that we're building.
Would never have thought of that. But you have some really good, interesting points that you've just made there. You are a member of EVAC, which is what, oh, let me get this right. The Electric Vehicle Association of Atlantic Canada,
You got
correct?
it.
I
You
got
got
it
it.
right.
First
That's great.
try.
So you've been you were one of the early people who's helped start it up. How have you seen it evolve through the years?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I was right there with Kurt and Jeremy and some others in our very first meeting, which I think was early February 2018. And it was just us. It was just, four or five of us at the library in downtown Halifax, meeting to see how we could connect with like-minded individuals in the early adopter space and sort of push that boundary and push that education and push that awareness across the entire region. And it's been enormously successful. We've grown as a Facebook group, we've grown from just those three original members to over 3,000. So that's a really good growth figure. And we really care about and really focus on the education and keeping the conversation positive. And I think that that's really important. It's a really hard job to do, especially, again, in our hyper-connected world where everyone has their own opinion, certainly doesn't mind sharing. So some of these Facebook groups with respect to EVs that you see across the country, sometimes they're really functional and sometimes they're really not because they're flooded with FUD and they're just flooded with just negative opinions that just turn everyday people off, especially, everyday people that come to those groups as a way and means to connect with that community and to try and connect with the technology with the EVs. So it really puts people off. But I'm really proud of the work that our BOD has done, Kurt Sampson in particular, who's just worked so hard at keeping that to be a positive space. It's really lent itself to, I think, the growth that we've experienced.
It's a very helpful Facebook page in the sense that if you ask a question, somebody will answer, and it will be
Immediately,
from a
yeah,
fellow
yeah.
immediately, and they're helpful, and everyone's on the same page, and it's great for these groups because if I had a question about my Tesla, chances are I wouldn't be able to contact them from Tesla themselves, but if I ask a Tesla group on Facebook that's well vetted,
Yeah.
of who belongs there, you're going to get hundreds of people responding to your
As a
query.
founding member, I can't even really be first in line to comment in there anymore. There's so many other helpful people that have come along
Mm.
and have stayed with us as well. So
Yeah.
it's pretty monumental. We have lots of things planned, lots more in-person meetings planned post COVID. So
Hmm.
that's helpful, and we'll hopefully see you in person, Maria, at one of these meetings.
I'd love to.
Love to see you.
Yes, I've been to a few already, and definitely, I'll be coming back into the throes of it all. Getting back to the electric vehicle network, it's a new year, lots of exciting things happening in the future. So what's next for your organization?
Testing and testing and testing. Well, we decided to not grow our inventory super large and bear the risk and the burden of that. We made a strategic decision to stay small and keep doing these little product market fit demonstrations and these different facets of experientially led EV education. So some things that are coming down the pipe in the future is of course more app updates, more rent electric updates, more integrations. We're going to be involved with integrating over what's called Open Charge Point Protocol and integrating software in with chargers that form part of our network that will pair with our cars. Which is something that I think would bring a lot of convenience to the space. When we were talking about consumer behavior, I'm sort of on this path where, how can I make coming to know an EV and using an EV and, becoming one with that lifestyle, how can I make that as easy as possible and as convenient as possible and as close to the reality they know now in gas cars? How can I make that as close as possible to maximize the probability of them transitioning, right? So when I think of that, I think about the piecemeal nature and lack of reliability around charging networks. And there really needs to be a player that steps in there and owns that space end to end for the benefit of the consumer. And I'm talking about, integrations to chat and, again, ease anxiety of people who might be going through that in the moment in one of our rental cars. And I'm also talking about, integrating those chargers. So essentially, it becomes part of the rental process. So it becomes habitual to plug in a car. We don't think about this as early adopters, but it's extremely foreign for a
Mm.
general everyday person to plug in a car. It seems so simple when you break it down, but psychologically, it's like when non-early adopters come to experience an EV first time, they often don't know it's on. Because again, it's that psychological association with something that's loud or something that's aggressive.
Yeah,
But
that happened to
it seems
me.
little subtle shifts in consumer behavior
Yeah,
that we need to chip away at to build that electric future that we all want and need.
exactly. I have to say I made that mistake when I first got my EV. I drove it to the grocery store and I was in the parking lot and I had to call my husband and say, "How do I turn this off?" Like there's no
Yeah,
engine to turn on and turn off. You
yeah,
get in and you press a button and go, and
yeah.
so yeah, there's the education, and I like how your company is focused on that, and getting some believers out there and growing them. That's great.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Johnny, for meeting with me today, and I love how EVN is reimagining the car rental world, and uh, really and adding the education component to it as well. Thanks so much.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Maria, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you. And hopefully, I'll have another opportunity to speak with you again and see you in person at one of our EVAC meetings.
Definitely, you'll see me there.
Okay, excited
See you.
to.
Bye. Imagine renting a vehicle where you can download the app, select your car, then walk up to it, tap, and then drive away. The electric vehicle network makes it as simple as that. This multi brand electric car dealer in Canada, with locations in Toronto, is where you can rent or buy lightly used EVs. Join me in welcoming Johnny Beckett, who talks about the electric vehicle network's revolutionary way of renting or buying an electric vehicle.